My name's Oscar Clark. I'm a consultant. I specialise in games, particularly looking at games all the way from the original idea, all the way through development, design to live operations.
Great. So let's take it right back. Do you remember when you first got interested in gaming or playing a game? What was the first game you ever played?
First game I ever played, aged 10 years old, Dungeons and Dragons. My uncle basically bought the very first edition of Dungeons and Dragons, and we were playing it. Must have been 1979, I think. That's how old. So Star Wars was just come out, all that kind of stuff. I first tried to get into games when I was 18. I pitched a game to Firebird, and they told me it was a fantastic idea, and to come back when I made it. But that's all good fun. It was actually 10 years after that I first got into games myself. I was looking after the marketing and the platform design for a thing called Wireplay, which was online gaming with a dial-up modem. So back in the days where you used to have all those funny sounds at the end of your phone, we were playing Quake and Counter-Strike and things like that. And I moved on to mobile phones in 2001 when I joined 3, the mobile operator, which was in 2005 the most successful mobile operator for games in the world in terms of revenue per user. Still relatively small, but revenue per user was and to this day I still kind of get bought beer by various people who run big games companies, mobile games companies, because of that. And then I worked on a fantastic thing called PlayStation Home, which is a virtual world. It doesn't exist anymore, sadly, but you could actually wander around and see, play and interact with people, which was pretty special. But maybe I'm better known for wearing this hat as a Unity evangelist, Unity being the big game development engine, and I basically travel around the world talking to game developers about making games.
Great, it sounds like a good job.
Not bad. And in the meantime, I'm a game designer, and I spend a lot of time helping game developers find money and helping investors find games. So yeah, lots of things to do.
Right. How do you think blockchain technology will change the gaming landscape?
So I am lucky enough to be involved in a game called Reality Clash. I was the game designer for it, but also had to design the token. So I had to design. Reality Clash is a first-person shooter in the style of Pokemon Go. So we wander around the streets of our town, go to a park, and we try to take over ownership of that park by fighting it out. Basically, I have virtual guns, and the virtual guns could also be bought as tokened items. At the time, they were not NFTs, but now they are. But imagine in the very early days, ERC720 kind of based tokens, trying to make that a unique asset. So what we did is we created effectively a JSON file which had a serial number inside it. We actually also future-proofed it by building in an API call and core stats. So each weapon had unique identifiers and it had the core stats. So anybody reading that token could actually take that data and use it in other games. So it's a kind of deep way of thinking of it, because we had to deal with a bunch of problems. So Apple and Android are not fans of running blockchain games, mostly because they're seen as basically bypassing their app stores, which we didn't want to do. We wanted to actively use their app stores and be able to help generate revenue for the game that way. So we had to separate out different functions of what was gameplay from those which are the collectible assets. And the Reality Clash team was very successful with their ICO. Not something I think you could do now. And they also now have a trading platform where you can buy and sell those guns. Mm-hmm. So I had a lot of fun trying to work out how do you work out the stats for guns. They had to be virtual, they couldn't be real world guns, but obviously most of them were based on at least concepts that were real. And we got our artists to play around and make them really gorgeous. So when you bought yourself a token-based gun, it had its assets, it had its art, it had all the pieces you needed. And so what has that done for the game? It means that I have something I own and I can resell. It means that I have something that the game can append history to. Now, that's not there at the moment, that game, but that was definitely part of the design. So what that means is if I had the Walther PPK 007 serial number, and by the way, we deliberately made our serial numbers so you could have a 007. They all had 3 digits, and the zeros would appear. Then that would make it quite attractive as an item. At least that's our impression. So having the unique one, having a history to it, having this kind of ecosystem where people can trade those guns was really interesting. But we added an extra piece, which is that we would only release a fixed number of those weapons. So tier 1 weapons, so the lowest level, would have a certain number, say a tier 1 pistol would be like 200 of. Then you might have a tier 2 gun, so let's say a tier 2 submachine gun, there may be 60 available. And then finally, the tier 3 weapon, you might have like 30 available. Now, you would be able to buy effectively the same weapon but a different skin, but you would never be able to buy a 61st tier 3 with the Bitcoin skin. So that, again, it's about understanding economics. It's about putting in core principles that scarcity is valuable. And actually putting the utility, the value that the player gets from what they want. Getting that kind of player focus to make sure that they can delight in the assets. I think that's what blockchain really did for us, is it allowed us to think differently and think widely, having the idea of a unique element, a unique element that could be updated but could never be removed, and that you would own, and that potentially other games could also use. And we think that's quite a powerful, profound thing. And I think some of the consequences and some of the other content that we've looked at for other games, the opportunities are vast.
Okay, great. What would be your ideal game to design that doesn't exist?
That's a difficult one. Well, there's no such thing as an ideal game. I've always wanted to find a way to recreate the experience of sitting around a room with your family, going into a story, into an adventure together, but without having to be in the same space. And everyone's, we all know about massively multiplayer online games, we know all about this, but there's something about the sort of round the table experience that we never quite recapture. And I think that's that immediacy of interaction, the sense of that we're in a shared space. And I think this is where virtual worlds have real opportunities, which we have yet to see. The idea of being able to be my avatar, at the moment, is quite limited. But if that avatar could be realistic, if that avatar could move as I move, if I could point at something with my hand and you see my avatar pointing at that object in your space, now we're in a different world. And I think that's an interesting space we're going to as VR matures, as virtual worlds mature, when it starts focusing again on the player and what is enjoyable about being a person interacting with other people, but being able to do that in the fantasy of gameplay. That escape from my norms of life, where the consequences are contained within that world. So if I shoot you, you're not hurt, you're not offended, you're not upset by me. It's part of the gameplay. That sense of independent of the real world, it's incredibly powerful. And actually, if it involves competence, a sense of sort of I'm good at something, if it involves escape, control, autonomy, and social engagement, these things are actually powerful for our mental health. These are great drivers for self-esteem and self-confidence. So games are an incredibly useful thing to help build people's sense of self, provided you create great context that really shine.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. Anything else you want to say?
No, pleasure. I mean, the bottom line is, the medium of games is an incredibly exciting space because, unlike other medium, we're not passive. We're not passive recipients. When you sit and watch a film, yes, you have an emotional reaction. You can have an active element, but I'm not generally choosing. Bandersnatch aside, I mean, those kind of interactive choices are interesting. But what happens in the game that differentiates itself from anything else is that you do. To misquote Yoda, do or do not, there is no show. There is no show and tell. It's all about what you do as a player. And I think that's why this medium is still got lots and lots of space for innovation. Bull.io.